guys, at Irontrap Garage, working on the Sweetheart Roadster again. This week what we're going to try and do is get started on a front motor mount. So the big problem that I have right now after getting the engine and trans kind of sitting in place is we need to work on getting everything centered and put some weight on the engine weight on the frame. So I need to make a front motor mount section that's going to let us do that. So I'm going to make a kind of a take on a Hoist style mount which bolts to the front of the engine on most of those mounts. And what they did back in the day is they made a Hoist mount that was like a plate that usually bolted to the front or around the sides, and it was a plate that ran along the front and then would sit on the front motor mounts of an early Ford, so you could put a small block, a Cadillac, all different engines they made these mounts for. Pretty cool, and I'm going to do one that's kind of my take on it. It's might be a little bit stronger and is customized a little bit. So what I'm starting with is I got the front timing cover here that I spent a little bit of time degreasing because it was covered in grossness. And I'm going to use this as a template, take some measurements off of where the frame is sitting now, and also use some Ford motor mounts in the front that I'm going to use for measurements as well to get that set up. So we're going to be doing a lot of patterning today to try and get everything worked out as far as the shape and size goes, and then hopefully we can get it transferred to a piece of metal and cut out, and maybe get something that will bolt on and get us setting the engine in a little closer. So let's get started. Okay, so I got this pattern cut out roughly how we want. Actually, the outside edges of it are pretty much exactly what we want. And I cut the radius here on each of these bolt holes about the size of the bolt head. So we're going to go a little bit larger than that when I make the final pattern. But what it's going to do is it's going to straddle around the timing cover and utilize these 4 bolts that go through the timing cover. And we're going to get that in there. And then it will sit over in here. We'll cut this shorter, and our motor mounts are going to sit somewhere in here on either side, and it will sit on that. So we got that pretty decent. I'm fairly happy with how that looks. So I'm going to trace this onto some plate, dig around, see what we got, and then we can cut that out, get that this front plate section made, and then we're going to actually put some flat bar stock that's going to run across the top the other way to strengthen it, top and bottom, weld it all together, blend everything in, and we'll see what we'll do on the ends there to make the motor mounts. But this is a pretty good start. Just wanted to show you guys kind of the idea so far how it's going to mount. And yeah, we'll work on getting this transferred over to some plate. Alright, so I saved you guys a lot of time of me cutting, sanding, grinding, drilling to get this piece roughed in. So a little bit of work. You know, I don't have a plasma table or anything like that, and I just couldn't see spending the money on paying to have just one part cut out. So I did it by hand, sanded it all out. Still needs a lot more sanding, but this at least gets us to the point where we can start kind of mocking it up, and then when I start welding everything together for this, I'll blend it all nice with the smaller sanders and everything to get it looking real good. So this is where we're at. This is going to mount down low here, and we can put this on. First of all, it's going to mount on these two lower bolt holes. And then also, I'm going to make a little tab so that it mounts on the underside as well. But for right now, I just wanted to get this up on here so we can even just get some weight on the engine. So I'm going to get this mounted up in place and see how we are. And then maybe we can kind of set the engine down on it a little bit just to start getting an idea where stuff's at, and we can start moving forward. Alright, so I did a bunch of fiddling around with this thing after I got the front mount on, or the plate that I've started for the front mount. That is by no means the finished mount, but what that front plate allows me to do at this point is just start mocking stuff up and get an idea of where everything needs to be before I finish building that mount. It's going to be like an I-beam design when it's done, but I don't want to go any further because I may need to shorten it, change the shape of it, and I want to make sure that nothing interferes with it before we go any further, and see if I need to change anything major. So the big stuff that I found that I need to do, and I got a shot of it earlier, I had to ditch that floor shifter for the Studebaker Trans. It was set up for like a Studebaker Lark or a Hawk or one of those, and it was meant to go to your right at your right leg and shift right there. When you put it in a small car like this, it ended up having the shifter almost underneath of in my crotch, which just was not going to work. Looks stupid, and it was also interfering with the center cross member, so I couldn't get the engine to slide back as far as I wanted it to. So I ditched it. I found out in between working on all of this over the past week or so that a shifter top from a like 60s Willys Jeep or also a International Scout use basically a same family transmission as this, as in some vehicles, and they had a top shift transmission. I borrowed one from a friend and confirmed that it will work. so I'm going to locate one of those for myself. So I ditched that. We've got the heads mounted up. I threw the intake on. I started mounting the fan and the pulleys and all that stuff, and started seeing what kind of issues I was going to run into. So far, it seems like it's going to work pretty decent. The heads are really darn close. The rear temperature sensor in the head, in the driver's side head, I'm going to have to put a little elbow or something in there and then thread the sensor in, because it will just hit the firewall. If I do all of this just right, I think I can squeeze it in. I added a little bit to the wheelbase to make room for this, just for this reason, so I don't have to cut the firewall quite as much. So right now we have just a little bit of room between the head and the firewall, should be plenty. And I mocked up the radiator and the grill and the fan, and it actually is pretty decent. The biggest thing that I will note is that I'm not real happy with is the fan isn't quite high enough on the radiator as I would like, but that's just the nature of the beast because of where this engine's sitting. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it up quite high enough without really putting the engine kind of a little too high. So it clears the cross member just barely. I may have to trim the fan just a tiny bit, and it's covering the most of the radiator. It's just not centering the radiator like I'd like, but I think I can live with it, at least until I figure something out. So that's where I'm at right now. It's pretty cool seeing it mocked up with some more stuff. Got weight sitting in the front, so actually it put the nose down a little bit more like I wanted. And I think the stance is going to be pretty kick-ass now that we got some weight in it. So now I'm just going to work on in the back, kind of centering stuff up, center it up in the front, and just make sure that I like the position that it's at. And we can start making the front front motor mounts and finish up the front cross member and start working our way back. But again, big step, at least for me. It probably just looked like a little bit of grinding and sanding and drilling and moving stuff around, but this stuff takes time. But some of the calculations I did early on are helping me quite a bit. I think it's going to fit in pretty good. It's going to look really nice, I think. So that's all I got for this week. Thanks guys for watching. As always, we're always trying to put out a video at least once a week. With this going a little slower now with what we're doing, normally put videos out for this on Fridays, but we've been supplementing with videos on the free tee on Tuesdays because this is going a little slower, and but we'll always get a video out to you every week. So I really appreciate you guys that have watched, subscribed, commented. If you like what you're seeing, you like building old hot rods and sharing with the process, share it with your friends. Thanks guys. See ya.